Hey guys, hope everyone's doing well. Hope everyone's enjoying their quality family time. Sorry, obviously, that it has to be under rough circumstances, but hope everyone's doing well and healthy. And it's a nice opportunity, obviously, to spend some time with families and to help your families clean for Pesach and all that good stuff. So just to start, we're going to speak a little bit about Shmirat HaLashon and the halachot of speaking, or rather, not speaking, Lashon Hara. But I just want to start off with a quick thought. Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, the Ramchal who writes the Mesilas Yesharim, he in his introduction he writes that his sefer wasn't created, or it wasn't written with the intent to be read once and then put aside. Often we buy a book, we open it, we read it. Okay, we read it. There's a common expression. Oh, have you read X? Yes, of course I've read X. Yeah, that's not what he wrote the Mesilas Yesharim for. He says he wrote the Mesilas Yesharim for continuous review, to read it over and over and over and over again. Why is that? Human nature is to see something, hear something, read something, and then to forget it. And therefore, chazara is incredibly important. And obviously, it doesn't only apply to the Mesilas Yesharim. It really applies to all of our learning and all of our growth. Review and chazara is incredibly important. And this is really a good time to look back, reflect, review on things that we learned throughout this year, and take advantage and review it a little bit. So with that in mind, before we discuss a little bit of Shmirat HaLashon, I want to just open up by discussing, by going over what we did at the last night's Seder when we spoke about bracha levatala and bracha she'ena tzricha. What's bracha levatala? Just to review, bracha levatala is a bracha that was made in vain. What does that mean? It means, just to give you an example, that I'm thirsty. I pour myself a cup of juice, apple juice, right? Or whatever juice you enjoy. Envision yourself pouring it for yourself. Pour myself a cup of apple juice. I make a shahakol. I lift the glass up. I'm about to take that first sip of cold juice, and the glass falls out of my hand onto the floor. Juice is everywhere. But I already made my bracha. I already made my shahakol. So what can I do to salvage the bracha, right? I don't want it to be a bracha levatala. I don't want it to be a bracha that was made in vain, for no reason. What can I do to salvage it? So there's a few things we can do. There's 4 things, and I think each one maybe has a little bit of in this order. It's better to do them in this order. Number 1 is if you poured yourself a whole glass of juice and the glass didn't break, chances are there's still some juice left on the bottom of the glass. So pick up the glass again, obviously assuming it didn't shatter, drink it, and you just drink technically what you made the shahakal on. Maybe not as much, but you were able to drink some of it. Option number 2, if the glass is shattered and there's no way to do it, you can take the container of juice, right? Let's say you just poured yourself apple juice straight from a bigger container, right? It wasn't just like a small bottle that you filled up the glass and there was none left. You can take the container, take another cup, or straight from the container, even again, it's not necessarily the most polite thing to do, but to salvage the bracha, drink some of the apple juice from the container, and that is another way to salvage your bracha. Option number 3, obviously, when we make a bracha, we have in mind, my shahakal is going to be for these things. So you can't just say, my apple juice is on the floor, let me just find something else that's shahakal. That being said, if you initially sat down at your table, right, let's say, it's Shabbos afternoon, you sat down to read a book, and you had a cup of juice and a dish of, candy, Mike and Ike's, right? So if you don't have your apple juice, technically your shahakal was intended to also cover the Mike and Ike's, so you can eat some Mike and Ike's, and you're covered that way as well. And the last thing, and this is really if there's no other options, and none of these other options can work, is you recite Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Again, this is a last resort. It shouldn't be the go-to. Made a bracha by accident. Quick, let's say Baruch Shem Kavod. It's not what it's meant for. This is meant for if all other options are failed, to prevent a bracha levatala. Now let's talk about bracha she'ena tzricha. What's the difference between bracha levatala and bracha she'ena tzricha? Bracha levatala, like we said, is a bracha in vain. A bracha she'ena tzricha is literally bracha she'ena tzricha, a bracha that we don't need, a bracha that was unnecessary. It didn't need to be said. So what's a good example of this? A good example of this is Shabbos lunch, right? We sit down, we make kiddush, obviously, on grape juice or wine. or whatever else, and then we make motzi on the challah. And the hamotzi covers everything that we're going to eat for the rest of the meal. Kugel, chicken, salads, covers everything. So let's say we sit down at the table, right? We make motzi, it's the main meal, and then absentmindedly, it can happen to the best of us, you take a piece of chicken, and absentmindedly, what's the bracha on chicken? Shahakal. You make a shahakal. It's an easy mistake anyone can make. So the question is, what can be done? So I'm trying to remember what we discussed in Shir. We had a couple different ideas shared. I think the most logical idea is that there's a lot of people who have a minhag to make a separate bracha on dessert, right? Let's say they bring out sorbet or fruit or cake or something else for dessert. Even if their hamotzi cover the entire meal, there's a lot of families that have the minhag separate bracha for dessert. So if that's the case, what you can do is, let's say you have your dessert sitting there, and you have a tub of Sharon sorbet there. I just made a shahakal. You can take some of the sorbet, right? Because you made a shahakal. You made a shahakal on the chicken, but technically you were planning on making a shahakal on the sorbet. That's the only real thing I can think of, again, to prevent a bracha she'eina tzrika from being made if you already made it. Obviously, the best thing is not to make it to begin with, but we're humans, we make mistakes, it happens. So again, the difference between bracha levatala, bracha she'eina tzrika is that bracha levatala is a bracha in vain, bracha she'eina tzrika is a bracha that was not necessary, it didn't need to be said. Now let's just move over to the Shmirat HaLashon bit of things. So for starters, I think we have to open up with obviously what Shmirat HaLashon. Shmirat HaLashon is guarding lashon, guarding our speech, our mouth, and really just being careful of what we say. Why do we have to be careful with what we say, though? Right? HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us a mouth, right? He gave us a mouth to use it. It's a good question. And the answer is like this. HaKadosh Baruch Hu obviously wants us to use our mouths, right? He doesn't want us to just stand there all day with our mouths shut. He gave us our mouths so that we could do good with our mouths. We could daven, that we could say good things, that we could share Torah, etc. He did not give us our mouths to gossip. He did not give us our mouths to put down other people. The mouth is an incredibly powerful part of the body. There's a story that was told over from many years ago. There was a man who went before the king. The night before he went before the king, he went to sleep, and all the different parts of his body got into an argument, right? The leg was saying, I'm the most powerful part of the body because I'm the one who takes him where he needs to go. The arms and the hands were saying, no, what are you talking about? We're the most important parts of the body. We're the ones who pick things up for him, who we're expressive for him. We shake hands with other people for him. We're the ones who are really doing things for him. And the eyes are saying, you guys are crazy. I'm the most important part of the body. I'm the one who sees for him. Without me, he wouldn't know where he was going. He wouldn't be able to take in sights. Nothing. The ears then, chime in. You guys, none of you know what you're talking about. I hear for him. Come on, there's nothing more important than that. Suddenly they realize that the tongue and the mouth are laughing. So the rest of the body says to the tongue and the mouth, what's so funny? So the tongue says, none of you know what you're talking about. The tongue is the most important part of the body. And they all start laughing at him and they say, what are you talking about? You're the little tongue. You're insignificant. Okay, what? You're not the one who's taking him where he needs to go. You're not the one who's lifting for him or holding things for him. You're not his sight. You're not the one who's leading him. You're not hearing for him. You're the tongue, maybe you taste stuff. Why do you think that you're the most important part of the body? The tongue says, tomorrow I'll prove it to you. Okay. Next day, the man goes before the king, and he's meant to start singing praises, and instead he opens his mouth and he starts insulting the king, and he starts disparaging him and saying terrible things about him. And the king gets so furious that he tells his guards, guys, throw this guy into prison. Tomorrow we're going to hang him. So the guy sitting in jail goes to sleep, doesn't know how the meeting went wrong, right? Goes to sleep. And the parts of his body start arguing again. And everyone's looking at the tongue and saying, what did you just do? That's crazy. And he says, hold on. Tomorrow I'm really going to prove to you that I'm the most important part of the body. The next morning, the guy wakes up. The guards are about to take him. He requests to speak to the king one more time. They take him before the king, and he says to the king, he gives him a very, very sincere apology. He shares all the thoughts he initially wanted to share, and he expresses himself so well that the king decides, you know what, yesterday must have been a mistake. You must have been tired. No problem, right? This is a mashal, but it just goes to show the importance of the tongue. The tongue controls everything that comes out of the mouth. What comes out of the mouth very often defines the person and can have severe ramifications, both bad and good. When thoughts are in our head, we can think something, but until we say it, it doesn't become a reality. There's the joke that said people can think that a certain person is a little bit foolish, right? But until he opens his mouth, no one actually knows for a fact. Once he opens his mouth, he can confirm it for everyone. So obviously that's a little bit extreme, and there's a reason that people say that as a joke. But the same concept is true with Lashon Hara. Human nature, right, is that we're not going to like every single person we interact with, especially if we interact with a lot of people, right? In a yeshiva environment, in a college environment, in a work environment, we're going to interact with tons of different people. And sometimes, whether we'll find them too loud, whether we'll find them to, different character traits that we might find annoying, we're not going to particularly enjoy every single character trait of every single person we come into contact with. So, obviously, we're going to have some thoughts. We're humans. It's human nature, right? Oh, that guy, he just talks so much. But that's a thought, right? Oh, that guy, he should really shower more often. But again, that's a thought. When it's in your head, it doesn't do any damage. Maybe it's not the nicest thought. Maybe you should work on, your tolerance a little bit. But it's in your head. It's not out for the world, right? It doesn't actually negatively impact the person that you're having that thought about. Once you share that thought, right? You've been thinking this about a coworker. Oh, he's so annoying. He talks so loud. You've been thinking that for years. One day you're sitting with another coworker and you say, Jim, he is so loud. Suddenly, it's out in the open. It's not just yours anymore. Suddenly you made your thoughts into a little bit of a reality. And that's just the danger of using your mouth. Obviously, our mouth can be used for a lot of positive things. But the reason the concept of Shmirat HaLashon exists is, again, we have to guard what comes out of our mouth. So the Chafetz Chaim obviously has a lot of great svarim in English that are great to read. This is one. The Chafetz Chaim, A Page a Day, great book. There's another one, Chafetz Chaim, A Lesson a Day. There's a short lesson every single day. Again, they're great resources that, are good to read. They're easy to understand, and you can read them over and over. They're very, very short, less than a page long. But one thing he says is that, again, in terms of us needing to guard our tongues, Lashon Hara can have everlasting impact. We live in the era today. I know that a lot of you guys like to follow politics on Facebook or the internet or whatever. We live in the era of what they call fake news, right? But how does fake news start? Fake news starts by someone sharing information. That's how true news starts also. Someone shares, right? Fake news starts with shared information, right? And maybe eventually we find out that it was fake news, so to speak, right? Mr. Trump, the president of the United States, likes to tweet fake news, right? At the end of the day, though, that news was out in the open. Someone shared that news. Someone used their mouth, or maybe he used another method. Maybe he typed it, but technically that's indirectly speaking. Bottom line is, someone shared that information and put it out in the open. So it just goes to show that we need to be careful, because our words can suddenly spiral out of control. Suddenly, your entire firm can know that this guy that you told one coworker about, he's a little too loud. Suddenly, the entire firm views Jim as the guy who's too loud. Probably doesn't make Jim feel very good. So, what's a couple tools that we can use to prevent ourselves from speaking Lashon Hara? So, the Chafetz Chaim says the biggest thing people can do, and it would reduce the amount of Lashon Hara spoken by a lot, is just thinking out every sentence you say before you say it. Right, says the Chafetz Chaim, you're in the middle of a conversation with someone. Before you say a sentence, think out the entire sentence in your head. Break it down. Again, it takes a second, and just say, wait a second, I probably shouldn't be saying that. Or, that's fine, and say it. That's one thing we can do. The other thing we can do on a more basic level, they say, don't do to your fellow as you wouldn't want done to yourself. It's the same thing. If you wouldn't like if someone said one of those things, the thing that you're about to say, you wouldn't like if your friend said it about you, you're about to say, Shlomo, he eats way too much. If you wouldn't like if someone said that about you, you shouldn't say it about them. That's just a little bit of the foundation of Lashon Hara. We're going to discuss this a little bit further. Obviously, Lashon Hara is bad. We're going to break this down into a couple parts. The next video is going to talk a little bit about the various negative effects that Lashon Hara can have on people, as well as things we can do to prevent them from occurring. Enjoy, guys. Again, hope everyone's enjoying your family time, and I look forward to, God willing, sharing more thoughts. Please stay in touch. Feel free to reach out. My WhatsApp number is the same as in Israel, and I'd love to be in touch with all of you, schmooze, see how things are going, etc. Have a great day, guys. Chodesh Tov. Enjoy.